Okay, let's start the meeting. Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming. Will the clerk please take attendance?
There are 6 council members present, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Wendell is running late.
Okay. Action to approve the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Please call the roll.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye. Okay, open forum. Is there a member of the public who wishes to address the council on an item not listed on tonight's agenda? Okay, I think Councilman Rasmussen would like to make an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to announce tonight that I have taken a new job that's going to be taking me outside of the Brookings community, and this is going to result in my resignation from council effective February 28th. Been very grateful for the opportunity to serve my hometown in this role alongside these other dedicated individuals. I want to say thank you to the Brookings community, my fellow council members, and city staff for their tireless efforts that make Brookings such a great place. This has been an exciting time for our community, and the work of the city is something to be proud of. This is a special place, and I'm confident Brookings is on track to continue that tradition. It's been an honor to serve in this role, and I'm thankful to the Brookings community for allowing me to represent you.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. I appreciate that. Good luck in your venture. We were going to have Nick Wendell do a report. He is running late, so hopefully he can tell us more about the Economic Development Merger Committee later on. We'll move on to consent agenda. Action to approve the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on any of the items on our consent agenda? Council questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Specker.
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Okay, so this is all pretty quick tonight. Andrew, would you like to meet me down at the dais? We have a flag to present. So normally we got a little time to do this, and this kind of just came upon us really quick. So this evening we will dedicate a flag to Andrew and give him momentum of his work on the council for the last 2 years in a variety of leadership roles. He's been a council member since 23 up to February of 25. Municipal Utilities Board ex officio member 2023 to 2024. Currently on the ex officio member as Brookings Health System, and also a Senate ex officio member to the Student Senate. Some of the notable projects that Councilmember Rasmussen was involved in during his time in office: the implementation of downtown incentive programs, energy efficiency project, fire department SCBA replacement, historic Pioneer Park band shell restoration, the development of Hillcrest Park pickleball courts. Police Department acquired a command trailer. The Police Department also developed the community service unit. The Ivy Center renovation, we were involved in help funding that. Child Care Facilities Expansion Partnership with BEDC and the Brookings School District and Boys and Girls Club. We help fund some of that. Prairie Hills Trail Phase 1 and 2, creation of tax improvement financing district number 13, which is the Brookings Marketplace. Tax improvement financing for District 16, which is Solventum expansion. City Council Strategic Plan 2024, Library and Activity Center Renovation Exploration Project. The Downtown Brookings Master Plan. 20th Street Corridor Continued Development. Police Department implementation of promotional process to corporal rank, creation of tax increment financing, District number 14, Branch Creek Development. Fire Department replaced engine number 2, creation of tax increment financing, District number 15, the Trails Head Development. Fire Department Training Tower in 2023, the 22nd Avenue Project in 2023. Community Development Block Grant received $1.6 million to assist in construction of a facility housing local nonprofits, which includes United Way, the Food Pantry, the Backpack Project, Senior Boxes Program, and the Healthline Center. We did union contract negotiations for 2022 to 25, and then Pheasant Nest Condos, Workforce Housing. The I-29 interchange, 20th Street South. The continued navigation of COVID-19. We missed out on a lot of that. And then the Armory renovation and hotel project hopefully will come to fruition this coming spring. But that's quite a list for 2 years. Congratulations. Okay, we'll have Casey Bell, Human Resources Director, come up present a summary of our City of Employee Service Awards, which were presented in December of '24.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. In November 2024, the city hosted an employee appreciation lunch to celebrate our incredible full-time employees. During the event, we honored those who reached a longevity milestone in 2024, recognizing their dedication and years of service to the city of Brookings. We snapped a few photos of the event so we can show off their smiling faces with you tonight. I'd also like to take a moment tonight to recognize these employees and show our appreciation for all that they do for Brookings. In the City Administration Office, we have Bonnie Foster with 20 years and Jake Meschke with 5 years. Mm-hmm. In Community Development, we have Pat Amen with 25 years of service and Mike Struck with 15 years of service. In the Fire Department, Pete Bolzer with 25 years. In HR, we have Nancy Olson with 5 years. And so also hard for me to believe I've hit my 5-year milestone with the city as well. In the library, we have Michaela Neibauer with 5 years. Parks, Recreation, and Forestry, Peyton Schultz. He hit his 5-year milestone. In the Police Department, Rhonda May with 5 years. And we have a few individuals not pictured, but I'd like to still recognize them. Seth Bonema with 10 years, Jeff Pullman with 10 years, Nate Bowden with 5 years, and James DeBoe with 5 years. In Public Works, the Engineering Division, we have Lucas Dahl with 10 years, and Sean Doremus with 5 years. And last but not least, in Public Works, the Street and Solid Waste Divisions, we have Kurt Athey with 20 years, Todd Johnson with 15 years, Todd Smith with 15 years, Dirk Hartenhoff with 5 years, and Zach Thielen with 5 years. So I want to thank these employees again for all of their commitment to the city of Brookings. We're truly grateful to have them be a part of our organization and really appreciate all that they do for our city. Thank you.
All right, I think a little bit of applause wouldn't hurt on this one. We do have some of the best people in the city running our city for us and doing the services that we all appreciate. Okay, Student Association, Claire Kenneke is here.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I don't have too much for you guys tonight. Last week was our Senate Outreach Week, so we did events all throughout the week. On Tuesday, we had a Senate Q&A with our president, vice president, as well as a few senators on the market stage during the lunch hour, and students could come up and ask them questions. I wasn't there personally, but I heard a lot of great questions about our finance process was asked, as well as just how to become a senator in general. And then on Wednesday, we had cookies in the main street. We tabled and passed out insomnia cookies to students as they walked by. And then on Thursday, we had a pizza and popcorn in the Senate office and encouraged students to stop by too. We just really encourage students to learn about student government, what we do, and all of the different amenities provided by it. And then also to encourage them to run. Our upcoming election is March 25th and 26th, so just coming up right after spring break. Last time I checked, we had 22 senator positions out, as well as 2 different tickets for president and vice president.
All right, thank you, Claire. Anybody have any questions for Claire?
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the update. Councilmember Wendell, would you like to do your report on the merger right now? All right.
Thank you, Mayor. We discussed, I believe, in November, our intention to create a merger committee to merge 4 entities in our existing economic development ecosystem. That was the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce, the Brookings Economic Development Corporation, Downtown Brookings, and Visit Brookings. And that 15-member merger committee has been convening on Friday mornings at 7 a.m. Over the last several weeks. And I have to tell you, the 15 members of this committee are dedicated and engaged folks. We were thoughtful about how to populate that committee with individuals who were on each of the boards of those 4 existing organizations. And there are 3 council members serving on the merger committee as well. Myself, Councilmember Tilton Byrne, and Councilmember Avery round out the 15 members. And our goal is to build a draft implementation plan that will eventually be shared with this body in April and May. And we'll ask the council to affirm the contents of that implementation plan. But I wanted to spend just a moment providing you an update on the work that we've done thus far and a couple of kind of prevailing questions that we've begun to be able to answer. I will acknowledge that at the beginning of our work, there were probably more questions than answers. We had defined clearly that our intention was to create one merged entity that would capture the mission of those 4 existing organizations, but we didn't yet know what the roadmap to get there would look like, and that was the task of the merger committee, and that's the work we're in the midst of right now. One of the questions that I've been asked a lot, and I know committee members have been asked a lot, is what is the problem we're trying to solve? This is sort of a heavy lift and has created, I would say, lots of chatter in our community and certainly in the economic development circle. I answer that by saying one of the problems that we have tried to address through this merger activity is the ongoing vitality and sustainability of our existing organizations. Each of them have faced kind of unique headwinds. Some of that is related to the recruitment and retention of high-quality dynamic staff. Some of that is having the support they need independently to fulfill their missions. Some of that has been funding in nature, and we're not trying to support these organizations year by year, but we're really trying to create an environment so that they can thrive and that the community can thrive 5 and 10 years from now. And so that has been the goal of creating this centralized, merged entity. We also see tremendous opportunity in bringing 4 dynamic organizations together into a singular collective that would have the resources of those organizations, the talents of their teams, the support of their board and the community, all unified behind a central mission. So part of it is identifying some challenges that were presented and how do we best address them, but also acknowledging that there are opportunities that a merged organization really would help us take advantage of. I do want to clarify that there are a couple of things that this is not. It is not an effort by the city to save dollars. It is instead an effort to really maximize our resources. One of the things that we have discussed as a committee in recent weeks is where do the dollars come that fund these 4 organizations and better understand their funding models. They're different across all 4 organizations. They're all dependent on a combination of city dollars and member dollars and investors and generated revenue, and so understanding what their funding models look like has been part of our work. Something else I want to say that this is not is a city takeover, and I hear that a lot, is whether or not the city of Brookings is interested in taking over all economic development activity for our community and our region, and that is not what the intention of the merger committee is. Instead, we've tried to serve as a convening organization to bring the right folks into the room to make some tough decisions and to have some meaningful conversation and to consider each of the organization's missions and how they can be represented in a newly merged entity. But the city of Brookings, and we've had good discussion and contemplated this a lot over the years, doesn't have an interest in hiring an economic development director, doesn't have an interest in being the lead organization doing this work. Instead, we're really serving as the convening entity to ensure that a draft implementation plan is created. I'll just share a couple of high notes on what we've done thus far. I realize this is probably a deeper set of talking points than you might have been looking for, but I think it's a really good opportunity to publicly talk about the work that we've done. As a committee, we have engaged staff. Of course, we did initial staff interaction and visited the board meetings and met with staff, but we've also done 2-on-1 interviews with members of the merger committee and every staff member currently working in these organizations to find out what they love about their jobs, find out what's going really well, what opportunities they would recognize in a merged organization. We've also had director interviews, and we've met in a 2-on-1 environment with the directors of all of the organizations in recent weeks, sort of at a midpoint to get updated, to share information with them about our progress, but also to gather feedback. A subcommittee has also done a peer community analysis. We've identified a number of cities in the upper Midwest that have merged their like organizations into a merged or partner organization in recent years, and that's been really insightful. So we have analyzed Laramie, Wyoming, Yankton and Rapid City here in South Dakota, Mankato in Minnesota, Burlington, Iowa, and Ames, Iowa. And through that process, we've learned that there are more than a dozen mid-sized cities across the state of Iowa that went through this merger a generation ago. So there's a really great template out there for how a merged organization of this nature functions in a city of 20,000 or more people. We've learned a lot from those conversations about what opportunities exist, but also pitfalls to avoid. And so we're in the midst of developing that report. One other note I wanted to make is what happens next. The committee has agreed that we're sort of moving into this phase now where we've gathered a lot of information, both internally and from external. We're starting to kind of synthesize that information and build the kind of draft version of some plans. But we'll reach a point fairly soon where we also need to build a public face of this and begin to report out on some of this work. So we've scheduled an all-staff forum for late March where we'll bring all of the staff together to meet with the merger committee and talk about some of the key elements of the implementation plan. We'll then host a forum with all the board members and some of the key stakeholders of these organizations to also see a draft version of the implementation plan. We're very intentional about the sequencing of that. We think it's important that the staff forum occur first, and then the stakeholder and board member forum occur, and then a draft version of the implementation plan would be shared at a city council study session, ideally in April. And that implementation plan would include a variety of elements that might include the funding model and a potential staff structure and the mission of the new organization. What we're really asking the public and the city to consider is, in general, do we support the elements of this implementation plan as we prepare for the 2026 budget? So as we move into the 2026 budget cycle, that as a council, we have heard in a public environment the elements of the implementation plan, and we affirm that, yeah, we would support that and include that in our 2026 budget. The other elements of the implementation plan will be determined by that organization. Our goal is really to ensure we share with the council the key elements that this body would need before they move into the budget cycle in 2026. And so we want to share that in a public environment in the study session, and then come back in a regular meeting in May and ask the council to take official action, ideally, to give this plan a thumbs up before we move into the budget cycle. I say all of that to convey to folks that as we get into late March and April and early May, that's really when I think we'll be prepared to answer some other questions and share more public elements of what a merged organization would look like. And there'll be lots of points throughout those weeks where that'll be a very public process. We'll engage staff in a forum, we'll engage board members and stakeholders in another forum, and then in a study session in a subsequent meeting, we'll be in front of the council in a public meeting. This is not a scenario where we intend to present an implementation plan in one meeting and take action that night. We really want to roll this out over multiple weeks and take as much feedback as possible. The last note I would make is that the committee has created a landing page as sort of a central repository for updates and information related to our work. That landing page can be found at growtogetherbrookings.com. After every meeting, we create a key takeaways document, which is 4, 5, 6 of kind of the themes of our meetings. And in that document, we sort of summarize what we discussed and some key information. All of those documents are on that website. A rundown of the committee roster is on that website. And an updated implementation plan and timeline is now also on that website. So you can find that information at growtogetherbrookings.com. I want to clarify that the name of the future organization is not Grow Together Brookings. That's not the intention. We just needed to find a general name or standalone landing page that doesn't belong to any of the organizations involved, and growtogetherbrookings.com is that destination. I would stand by for any questions that councilors might have.
All right, I don't know if we'll do any questions. I appreciate the report. If there is any questions on council, comments? All right, thank you for the work that you guys are doing. On to item 7, the funding requests. Item 7A, discussion and possible action on the 2025 outside agency funding recommendations. Paul Brasino, our city manager, and I think Heidi's on the phone.
Correct. Heidi Gullickson's on the phone to answer any questions or things I might have left out. Mayor, city council member, through the budget process, the city council commits by policy of funds for social service outside agencies. The United Way is tasked with receiving a request for these budgeted funds, and a rubric is utilized, prioritize, and recommend funds to the City Council for 2025. Priorities for 2025 focus on food security and rental assistance here within Brookings. The city increased its funding in 2025 to $258,035, which aligns with the City Council's policy. The amount requested by social service agencies, however, was $473,500. Attached to staff memo is the recommended distribution of funds based on the rubric and United Way's work. Staff recommends approval of the proposed 2025 outside agency funding distribution, and Heidi Gullickson, the United Way director, is on the phone to help answer any questions that either the public or council may have of this recommendation.
Okay, Paul, thank you. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved and second. Is there any public comment on this item or any of the items on here? Council member have questions, comments? Council member Specker.
So rental assistance is one of the priorities. Where is that on this budget sheet?
It's not on the budget. Oh, go ahead, Heidi.
I was just going to say, Salvation Army is, those dollars would be able to be used for that.
The which ones? I didn't hear.
Salvation Army.
Oh, okay.
The Salvation Army.
Okay, thanks.
Councilman Duran.
Thank you, Mayor. Heidi, I have a quick question. I was just wondering if you could take a moment to talk about really putting the need of the community into a visual for us of what patterns have you seen in the community. I know that we are focused on food insecurity and rental assistance, but all of these programs are working collaboratively on different initiatives, I understand, in the community. I was just wondering if you could overview the general need that you have seen through your work in United Way, or the various needs.
Sure. You know, as you said, a lot of these organizations are kind of working together because when there is one social issue, there is multiple. And so these organizations can fulfill in their space, but then also there's lots of warm referrals made and those types of things to help people get that next item that they're seeing. So we may run into a family when they're looking for food, but if they're looking for food resources, there's typically another need as well. So knowing that these dollars can go into the community and help whichever needs a family might be experiencing is important. I would say that rental assistance, the dollars available in the community is not very large through different organizations. And so that's always been a challenge. We know through the food insecurity programs, there are multiple ones that fill different needs. And then also with our mental health resources that are available in the community, those are important too, because again, all of it ties in together.
Thank you. I just had a comment that I really do appreciate that this is an aspect of our budget from a community perspective of the support that we get of continuing to prioritize nonprofit agencies in our budget along with continuous council support too. Just like Heidi said, that an individual in a community is facing multiple needs at once, and that can be due to a variety of reasons in their lives. And it's more common than I think any of us currently understand unless you work in it day to day. And so I appreciate the work of the staff of these nonprofits and of United Way. And I understand that the need is always going to exceed what we alone can contribute and the community can contribute. So I appreciate that this is just one step that we can take to continue building up our community.
Councilmember Tilton Burn.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the United Way for the efforts that you do each year to go through this process with us. This has not always been the process that we use, and historically, a lot more of the review process landed on either city staff or city council members. And to have the expertise of United Way that really is tapped into sort of the need of various nonprofit agencies within our community is very helpful. And so I just want to thank United Way for that ongoing partnership with us to help us go through this process and using the rubric in order to be able to properly identify which grants should be awarded and at what dollar amount. And I also want to just recognize the organizations that are listed on this chart here in front of us. Each of these organizations provide very valuable and very necessary services for our community, and so to be able to have organizations like this functioning right here in Brookings and to allow the city to be partners in that is just really incredible. And so thank you to all the nonprofits for the work that's being done.
Any other council members have comments, questions? Paul, you have a comment?
Yes, I mentioned the wrong dollar amount. As you see in the chart, it's $263,715. I mentioned $24. So please ensure the number for tonight is $263,715. Secondly, I had a question for Heidi. Last year, I believe we had ICAP on the list, and I saw ICAP wasn't on the list this year. Is there a reason for that?
These were all of the ones that applied.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If there's no other comments, please call the roll.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Doran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Okay, on to first readings. Item 8A, introduction and first reading on ordinance 25-007. An ordinance authorizing budget amendment number 1 to the 2025 budget. Ashley Wrench, our Finance Director, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This is the first reading of Ordinance 25-007, authorizing amendment number 1 to the 2025 budget. This ordinance carries forward 2024 budgeted amounts and cost savings for expenses to be incurred in 2025. The general fund total of just under $700,000 is made up primarily of supplies, services, and furniture that were budgeted in 2024 but are being delivered or completed in 2025. The most significant amounts in the general fund include $85,000 to replenish the retirement payout contingency account and the carry forward of $350,000 for Shady Acres remediation efforts. The CIP fund includes $7.3 million to be carried forward for multi-year park, street, and facilities projects, as well as equipment that was ordered or budgeted in 2024 and arriving in 2025. Special revenue funds include $251,000 in multi-year capital projects at the Dakota Bank Center, as well as $201,000 for drainage projects at Arrowhead Park and Madera Avenue Bridge, and $12,100 for engineering related to state permitting. This amendment also brings forward the remaining budget in our capital project funds for a total of $1.1 million for projects such as finalizing University Boulevard, additional work at the 20th Street interchange, the detention basin associated with TIF 9, and the ongoing consulting related to the public safety facility project. In enterprise funds, we are carrying forward approximately $4.3 million in expenses for multi-year airport, golf course, and solid waste projects and certain operating expenses. This amendment also includes $1.57 million in the airport fund for FAA and Department of Transportation grants to support the capital projects at the airport. And finally, in transfers between funds, we have a transfer from the CIP fund to the Dakota Bank Center for their capital project carry forwards, a transfer from 3B to the Dakota Bank Center for their budget variance for 2024 in the amount of $31,485.95, and finally, a $650,000 transfer from the TIF 11 revenues to the CIP fund for the 20th Street South Shared Use Path project that is being moved up to 2025. A detailed listing of these items by account is included in your packet, and the second reading of this ordinance is scheduled for March 11th. With that, I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Any questions, comments from council? Ashley, in the second page of your presentation, there's a building sinking fund. It's like a little over $800,000.
Yep, so that is a reserve fund that we have. It's basically a contingency fund for all of our, any buildings or capital projects that, that come up that aren't planned. And that is a dedicated reserve that backs that up.
Just kind of want to remind the public that we do have a fund that we put in for just in case we have air conditioning unit or a major repair that we've got to take care of quickly on one of our city buildings that we might have overlooked on our maintenance. Okay, item 8A, introduction and first reading on ordinance 25-006, an ordinance pertaining to an application for a conditional use permit to establish a major home occupation, a gunsmithing business, in a residence R1C Family District, 1630 Owine Street. Mike Struck, our Development Director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The ordinance 25-006 before you tonight is for a major home occupation at 1630 Owine Street. The proposed home occupation is a gunsmith where the applicant is proposing to repair guns in a detached garage. Within that two-stall detached garage, he's basically just going to have a workbench and a tool bench to maintain any tools and oils and such associated with that. Any guns that they would be working on would be stored in a safe within the house until they can be picked up. The applicant would be required to obtain all the necessary permits from the state and federal agencies for this type of use. The recommendation that comes before you is that the conditional use permit is valid for the applicant only and is non-transferable. And then the applicant would be required to provide proof of the appropriate state and federal permits every 3 years to the city of Brookings. This does come as an 8-0 recommendation from the Planning Commission. The Development Review Team supports the request, and the Police Department was sought for input and did not have any issues with this particular conditional use permit. Stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any public comment on this item? Council have any questions or comments at this time? All right, the second reading will be March 11th. Item 8C, introduction and first reading on ordinance 25-005, an ordinance to change the zoning within the joint jurisdictional area surrounding the city of Brookings. Rezone outlets 10 and 11 in the west half of the south half of the northeast quarter of section 11. Township 109, Range 50 West, Brookings County, South Dakota, from a joint jurisdiction agricultural district to a joint jurisdiction business B3 heavy district. Mike Struck will also present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Ordinance 25-005 is a rezone in the joint jurisdiction area located along Main Avenue South and just on the south side of 36th Street South. The area is surrounded by ag zone land to the north, south, and east. Immediately adjacent to it to the west, the property is zoned B3. The future land use map does identify this area as an urban medium intensity use, which would support the request to rezone to B3. This does come to you with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission. The Development Review Team submits the request, and this would proceed to a joint meeting with the Brookings County Commission on tentatively scheduled for March 11th.
All right.
I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Public comments on this item. Council have any questions, comments? Okay, and you're right, Mike. It's 5:30 tentatively at the County Commission at 5:30 on March 11th. Item 9, second readings and public hearings. Item 9A, second reading and action on ordinance 25-004, an ordinance amending section 62-86 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Brookings, South Dakota, to provide for removal of the designation of no mow May in the City of Brookings, South Dakota. Albert Paten will, Sustainability Council Vice Chair will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and attendees. Today we will have the second reading of the repeal of No Mow May. A little bit of background here. The national campaign was implemented about 2 years ago, and it was a national campaign advocated by Bee City USA. Purpose was to support pollinator populations by encouraging residents to delay lawn mowing during the month of May. This program did demonstrate some good impact. One of the greatest impacts that we saw was increasing awareness about pollinators. But we did see mixed results and unintended challenges. Some of those mixed results and unintended challenges included proliferation of invasive plant species from unmanaged lawns, a negative impact on neighborhood aesthetics as well as potentially property values, increased complaints about overgrowing and unsightly lawns, and difficulty enforcing. So based on that feedback, a city council conducted a study session back in October of '24. During this study session, the Brookings Sustainability Council recommended discontinuing No Mow May and looking at alternative resolutions to help our population of pollinators. So based on that, we did have the recommendation to approve the repeal of No Mow May provisions of Vegetation Management Code and focus on alternative strategies. By repealing the No Mow initiatives and focus on these alternative strategies, we identified that the city will be able to implement several attributes. First one is restore lawn maintenance standards by following our current standards and practices that we have within the city. Two is tackle the invasive species. By doing this, we would be able to reduce the potential risk of spreading due to unmanaged lawns. Three, looking at promoting alternative pollinator-friendly practices. And this would be looking at encouraging resilience to adopt year-round lawn maintenance practices. Four, continuing to provide education and resources by collaboration with other local organizations. And five, evaluating other long-term strategies, some of which we spoke about during our last meeting with the B-City resolution. So in closing, based on feedback, Brookings Sustainability Council believes, while well-intended, No Mo May initiative has presented challenges that outweigh its benefits. Sustainability Council believes the city should explore other sustainable approaches to pollinator conservations that balance ecological goals along with our community needs. Any questions for you, Assistant?
All right. Before we start there, to entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there any public comment on this item? Council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Duren.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we had extensive discussion about this topic at the first reading. I did just have one comment I wanted to pass along to you in the Sustainability Committee. Last night, I was presenting in front of the Students Association, and this topic was brought up and discussed. And I would say if you were looking at the success measure of community awareness about supporting pollinators, that was definitely brought up, and I think that has been met with the student population that I was talking to last night. So I wanted to extend the appreciation for the work that you have done on this initiative, and they are very eager, as am I, and I'm sure the rest of the council, to see what these other strategies come forward with. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you for the feedback.
All right. Any other comments, questions? I'm all about the pollinators too, and I'm a big flower guy, so I'll probably work on it that way instead of not mowing my lawn. So with that being said, please call the roll.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
All right, we have another second reading. Item 9B, public hearing and action on a commercial corridor design review overlay district site plan for Lot 2 and Block 1 of the Weiss Edition. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will present this item.
Thank you.
That item has been removed from the agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next one.
Thank you. 'Cause
And,
I wasn't prepared
be-
to discuss
what's that?
that anyways. Thanks, because I wasn't prepared to discuss that one anyways.
All right. Item 10A, action on Resolution 25-019, a resolution providing the creation of tax increment financing district number 17. Mike Struck will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Resolution 25-019 is a resolution creating the boundaries of tax increment district number 17. I wanted to let you know it's a two-step process tonight. The first step with this particular action, if approved, is creating the district boundaries. Then the next item on the agenda is in regards to the project plan, but they're somewhat closely tied together for discussion purposes. The district boundaries is shown on the overhead map. It's between 12th and 13th Avenue along on the south side of 6th Street. It's currently a vacant parcel, and then it would extend north up Campanile Avenue and encompass the properties north of the Bank Star all the way up to 7th Street, as well as one property on the west side of Campanile Avenue. These two projects combined are going to include up to approximately 198 housing units between the two projects. It has been classified by the Department of Revenue as an economic development TIF, primarily due to the commercial components included in the mixed-use project on 6th Street. The little parcel that is on the west side of Campanile will be utilized for overflow parking for that apartment project up on the very north end there on the corner of Campanile and 7th Street. This does come to you with a 6-to-1 recommendation from the Planning Commission, and staff does support the creation of this tax increment district boundaries, and I'd stand for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and second. Is there any public comment on this item? Council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Specker.
Do you know what the one negative vote on the Planning Commission, why that was? What their concern was?
don't believe they specifically stated their reason why, but I think through the discussion, it might have been more related on I can't remember if it was the appropriateness of the public-private partnership. So this is proposed as a public-private partnership with the private side obviously being the developer, but the public side being South Dakota State University, and that they want to make improvements within Campanile Avenue as it is intended to serve as kind of their gateway to the campus. And I think there was some discussion about that and the appropriateness of that. And then I don't know if the other part of the discussion was just whether or not TIF is appropriate when you're removing housing stock up in this area. Because north of Bank Star, there is about 5 or 6 homes that'll be removed.
But you're increasing it significantly as well.
Yes, we are. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? So please call the roll.
Avery,
Aye.
Doran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
All right, item 10B, action on resolution 25-020, a resolution approving tax increment financing district number 17 project plan. Mike Struck will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Resolution 25-020 is a resolution authorizing approval of the project plan associated with tax increment district number 17. The project plan is written in such a manner that it encompasses the 2 building projects and the public infrastructure in between on Campanile Avenue. Sorry about that. The overall eligible project costs that could be reimbursed through the TIF is $9.48 million. However, looking at the financials, running the projections, and the requests that came in from the developers is less than that amount, but that is the maximum amount that could be recouped or generated just based upon the eligible project costs. It's a combination of not only commercial space, but also multifamily rental units within this area. So there'll be a mix of different housing types, different number of units within the 2 structures. The public improvements would all occur within Campanile Avenue. If you are familiar with that stretch, the block to the north between 7th and 8th Street, where the parking lot is on the west side of the street, has a center median through that area that is landscaped, and they would like to continue that same median from 7th Street as they work towards 6th Street, but probably stopping. It's really primarily going to occur between the Bank Star driveway entrance and the area to the north. There'll be some widening of the street, removal of the curb and gutter, widen the street, repaving, new curb and gutter, and then a center median. You may recall that in August of 2024, the council adopted new TIF guidelines, and so it does go through a pretty rigorous test when we do get these requests in. I just wanted to highlight some of the things that we look at when we receive a TIF request, more so for the public's benefit. We've always had the but-for test. Would this project move forward but for the use of tax increment financing? But we also have looked at the equity requirement. We have a TIF cap. We look at the taxable increase that is generated upon completion of the project. Look at the minimum project size. We request that the developers waive the discretionary formula if they're receiving tax increment financing benefit. We look at the market demand, and in this case, we look at our 2022 Brookings County and City of Brookings housing study to see if these types of units are needed in the community and at various price points. And then if it's an opportunity for a residential development, and then also looking at the financing method that's included. One of the things with state law is you're restricted to all of your tax increment financing districts can't exceed the aggregate assessed value of 10% for the community. And if this one is approved, that would push us at about 1.5%. So we are well under that 10% maximum threshold. The other thing with tax increment financing, it is pay-as-you-go, so the developer would be responsible for fronting the costs. It would only be reimbursed as the tax increment revenue is generated over time. If approved, there is still one more step that would need to be completed, is we would bring back a development agreement for your review and approval in the near future. With that, I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Council, any questions on this item? Comments? Councilmember Specker?
I will get this figured out at some point, but exactly who determines, or is it done with revenue, which TIF it's going to be, for the economic versus the housing?
So typically, you submit a pre-application process to the Department of Revenue, and they base it upon the information that is submitted. So the Department of Revenue makes that determination.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, you
And
have a
should
comment?
I would like to remind people that last week's study session has an excellent recording of TIFs presented by Mike, if people don't know what it is. So, and thank you for doing that last week.
You're welcome.
This question is maybe for Toby Morris, our TIF guru, if you wouldn't mind coming up here. Mike mentioned that at the Planning Commission, there was some discussion about public-private use for a road and how that works. Can you talk a little bit about how that's utilized, how we've used it here in the past? I know University Boulevard is one of those examples. The funding structure and who pays for what is a little different here, but how that maybe works and how it meets the TIF law, if you will.
You bet. Toby Morris with Collier Securities. I work a lot in the tax increment area around the state, and it's becoming very, very common to see that public-private partnership. As we know, government budgets are stressed more and more, and the capital markets with interest rates becomes a lot more difficult, where you see this kind of partnership come in. This one would be unique the way it's proposed with SDSU, in that being there would probably, and this would be behind the scenes, a revenue sharing just to help reduce or mitigate a lot of the risk that goes into this. You know, TIFs in itself have a tremendous amount of risk. If you've seen what was going on, I live in Pierre, and our circus that's been going on there the last couple months, there was, I think, over 20 bills that related to property tax. And so that's where we really tried to dive deep into the projections, so we know with some kind of confidence of what we're seeing. So with there is a revenue split on that, it's to mitigate as much as possible. Brookings here itself, you guys had very successful tax increment districts. They've done exactly what they set out to do. They've been paid off sooner than what you thought they would. And again, I think a lot of those have been on a public-private partnership, if that helps, Paul, or...
Yes, it does. And just to clarify, the university would be upfronting the cost of the road, not the developer, and be pay-as-you-go as well as the attention. And that will probably come forward in the plan, or in the development plan coming forward at the next city council meeting.
Correct. That would be a partnership between SDSU and 6th Street Development. Again, no risk to the city.
Okay, Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. Sort of along the lines of that topic, Toby, could you maybe just affirm for us? I've gotten some questions from folks around South Dakota State University as a public entity receiving or being a beneficiary of revenue generated through a TIF. So you're affirming for us tonight that that's a regular and lawful practice, and it's practiced in other cities that might have a similar relationship in the state of South Dakota?
In terms of a public entity receiving tax increment?
In this particular case, if South Dakota State University is going to be an ultimate beneficiary of some of the revenue of the...
I think on a global basis, you're saying a public entity, so it'd be no different than a city-owned tax increment district, which we see those are very common. You know, here it is a partnership trying to enhance the beauty of the entrance in there, and so it would Again, there would probably be a revenue sharing to help offset with the borrowing the funds up front, because there's only so much cash that can go around.
If I could just.
Go ahead.
I just want to maybe zero in on something you shared earlier, that there's not risk to the city, but in entering into this type of agreement with an entity like South Dakota State University, there's benefit in beautification, the aesthetics, what happens to Campanile long-term. The city would benefit from this potential revenue sharing with the university in this case.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the true intent of a TIF, years ago, we'd talk about blighted area, and I don't want to say this is blighted, but it's an area that can be significantly enhanced. And so I think it truly falls into what the foundation of tax increment was set up to do.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Any questions, comments? I guess I'd like to make a comment a little bit too, as this boulevard is kind of long awaited. We've been wanting to get this done for a long time with SDSU, and it will definitely keep the traffic down a little bit. When you put a boulevard in there and a little bit more obstructions, it causes the traffic to slow down. So it'll be a safer entrance. I know that there's a parking lot that's going to be across one of the buildings on Campanile Drive. There's going to have to be some crosswalk there, and it would certainly bring the traffic speed down too also. So I think it'll be a beautiful entrance, and about the only thing we have to worry about besides that is maybe getting the street light moved. But that's another future argument. Please call the roll.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Okay, item 10C, it's action on resolution 25-013, resolution authorizing the name of streets in the Brookings Marketplace development. Before we do that, I entertain a motion to remove this item from the table.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Okay, Mike Strucko, present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Yeah, the action before you tonight is the naming of two streets. One is a public right-of-way, the other will be a private road. The public right-of-way will run from Lefevre Drive to 32nd Avenue, just north of the My Place Hotel that currently exists. The private street will run west of Lefevre Drive and will be between two major tenants out there, Aldi and Target. And so private streets that run east-west need to end in the Suffix Place. And so there's, we're open for discussion on what you feel are appropriate names in that particular location. So with that, open it up for discussion.
Mike, can you put out the list of the names, the top 5? Do we have those?
We do not have those names for the presentation.
I can.
Councilmember Specker has the list. Let's throw the list out quick.
So the first one, which is very close to the second one, is Pask Place. The second one is Bisbee Place. Third is Waiapi Place, Sunflower Place, and then Wheatgrass Place. But I know there were some concerns about the last two being too similar to other roads that exist in Brookings. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm
And we
gonna just-
did, I just want to add, we did have over 30 recommended names. So there, we did get a lot of response from
I appreciate the
on
public
this.
chiming in. I'm going to entertain a motion for starting this, unless you have a comment first.
I just thought maybe it might be helpful to identify how we got to the list of the top 5 names, because I'm sure folks in the public aren't aware of what our process was.
So the process was to make a list of all the recommended ones along with the rationale for those recommendations. And then that list was sent to all the council members, and they picked their top 5 in order. And then their first was assigned 5 points, their second was assigned 4, and then we totaled it all up. OPE only voted for 1.
I did.
But everybody else voted for top 5, and these numbers are the actual points that each got. So the top 2 are really extremely close. I guess there's some concern whether Pask Place is too close to some of the businesses in Brookings, and that maybe Pask Flower Place. But then I know there was a concern on the length of the name for street signs.
I'm only looking out for
purposes.
Public Works, because they have to replace the signs every now and then. They do get faded, but if they're fine with it, I have no preference.
Well, and then Bisbee is named after apparently the person who homesteaded that particular area. I could not find, that was recommended in the email, but I couldn't find any actual documentation of that. So there, do you want to name it after a person or the state flower?
Okay, let's go this way. Entertain a motion to approve such and such name. Let's start with that. Councilmember Tilton Burn?
I would like to motion that we name the streets Market Street and Pask Flower Place.
Second.
There's a second. Is there any public discussion on this item? Mike?
Both are acceptable with our street database. They both work, so.
All right, we're past that already. Is there any public comment on this item? Council members have comments, questions?
I have a question for John. Is that too long of a name for a street sign? Okay.
Just for the record, John says it's not too long. Councilmember Tilton Burn.
I would just like to maybe explain the reasoning behind why I would support those 2 specific names. Market Street, obviously, this piece of land has been locally known as the Marketplace since we've had ownership of it as the city. And so to honor kind of that name that we've established at that location, I think it makes sense to continue with the idea of it being Market Street. And then, of course, Pask Flower is the state flower of South Dakota, and so I think it would be lovely to honor our state's flower and name a road after it.
All right. Any other council member questions, comments? This is almost your last thing you could talk about, Andrew, if you want.
Sounds great to me.
Councilmember Duren.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple questions I'd like to present and then a comment. So in reference to Councilmember Specker's comment of there was some concern around public or visitor confusion between a business that we have downtown and a street. I just wondered if the council or maybe Mike would like to talk about, do we have other examples in town of a similar street and business building name? And in your day-to-day work, have you seen that it does cause confusion? Does it detract? Anything that you'd like to provide?
The one that comes to mind is Madera Avenue, Madera Acres. I don't think it causes a lot of concerns. I think probably the biggest thing to think about is in our tech-savvy world is when you punch in an address or something on your phone to get Google Maps or whatever map. Some people like Apple, I guess. Whatever version you use, how does it fit on the screen? But I don't think, I just did a quick example. When you type in Madera, it actually takes you to Madera Township. It doesn't even bring you into the city limits. So you end up south of town. I don't think it really matters. I think we'll be okay.
And a follow-up question too, in your experience conversationally with a private road similar to this, is the name of the road used quite frequently when you were trying to identify where to go? Or in the sense, do you think that people would say, meet me at Target, or do you think that they would say the street name more?
In my opinion, and it's based upon an underpass in the capital city that is undefeated, is when certain truck drivers punch in something in their GPS unit, they follow it to a T. And that's why you hear of multiple times a year, the semis getting stuck in the underpass in Pierre. Really the main reason for this is so that we can address for E911 and delivery services. I think everybody's going to be able to see those businesses from 6th Street. But it's really to make sure for E911 purposes and for delivery drivers that they have an exact address that they can get to. I don't think it's going to be in casual conversations. The name may not come up very often.
Sure, thank you. My only comment would just be that the reason why we're having this discussion is because we do want to be intentional about supporting our local businesses that are existing, as well as giving a very symbolic and meaningful name to a street of a project that has been a very long time coming. And so just wanting to have a comprehensive and mindful decision about this name, because it is symbolic and it will impact our community positively. And so just making sure that we are lifting up both sectors of our community. I would say just personally that off of the feedback that you provided and conversation with community and council, this was a name that was recommended very often on social media and direct emails and in conversation. And then we also weighted all of the decisions together as council. I do think it is a meaningful name that represents our state and a blossoming opportunity that we are bringing to the community. But just always a reminder to council and community to support our local businesses, and if it's brought up in conversation, to make sure that you clarify that in conversation as well.
And it is one word.
Perfect.
All right, Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a comment of appreciation for those social media commenters who had other creative ideas, like About Time Way and Believe It When I See It Boulevard and Can't Wait Street. Thank you for sharing your excitement for this development that is finally coming to fruition.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, maybe later this spring we can all go out in search of a pasque flower out there and see if we can find one growing out there in that location. So.
I was going to say, we already got some wheels turning in the back of the room here. Maybe our Park and Rec might come up with some wildflowers. So, please call the roll.
Rasmussen?
Aye.
Specker?
Aye.
Tiltonburn?
Aye.
Wendell?
Aye.
Avery?
Aye.
Doran? Aye. Niemeyer?
Aye. Okay. City of Brookings Progress Report. Samantha Beckman, Assistant to the City Manager, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This is the February 2025 progress report. The city has several volunteer board position vacancies, and petitions to run for the 2 city council and 2 school board positions in April are due by February 28th at 5 p.m. If you have any interest in filling any of the volunteer positions or running for election, be sure to contact Bonnie Foster, our city clerk. The city clerk's office is also running an I Voted sticker design contest. Designs for those are due by February 28th as well. And if any downtown business or property owners are still interested in applying for the downtown incentive programs, be sure to contact me by the end of the week, as applications are due by March 1st. The Public Works Department is gearing up again for their 2025 projects. In the engineering division, the street maintenance project is expected to be about twice as large as last year. This includes the slurry sealing and chip sealing. Numerous street resurfacing projects will also happen in 2025, including a portion of 17th Avenue and 7th Avenue. Sidewalk maintenance will also continue, along with ramp and signal improvements at Main Avenue and 12th Street South, and intersection improvements at 22nd Avenue and 20th Street South. Several drainage projects have been identified as well, as installation of a new shared use path along 20th Street South and 12th Street South. And we'll be continuing to update the master transportation plan and finishing up the 2-year parallel taxiway project at the airport. The Solid Waste Division has several 2025 projects, including the creation of an e-waste program where residents will be able to properly dispose of electric devices. They'll continue implementing the Solid Waste Master Plan by having construction start on the leachate force main by this summer and finishing the landfill equipment storage building, and creating an area where residents can dispose of their garbage without having to drive up to the landfill working area. Solid Waste Division also is working with a group of SDC students to conduct a route optimization study on collection routes to identify efficiencies. And the Holiday Light Recycling Program finished up, and we received over 1,436 pounds of string lights between November and January. And finally, a large equipment purchase has been placed, or will be placed, I think, for the landfill dozer coming up. The Street Division is also working on transitioning their fleet management software to expanding their road weather information system to include bridges and implement a skills matrix to promote staff development and provide opportunities for advancement there. They also have several large equipment purchases for 2025, including those listed on the screen there. And make sure that you are signed up for your Notify Me text alerts to know when there's a parking ban for snow. The Brookings Police Department is seeking CALIA accreditation, which involves a comprehensive review of our policies, procedures, operations, and management practices to ensure they align with nationally recognized standards. We encourage residents to visit the Brookings Police Department's Facebook page to access the public input portal to share comments, concerns, praises, or any other feedback you'd like to give about the department's compliance with CALIA standards. The police department continues to provide their Tidbit Tuesday Facebook series where they share helpful tips and tricks about safe driving, code compliance, and more. And officers were also involved in several community policing events this last month, including the continuation of Breakfast with Badges, maintaining a presence at the Larson Ice Center hockey events, participating in the MLK Junior Parade at SDSU, as well as continuing their Fur Friday series to highlight local Humane Society events. The Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department hosted several activities over the Frost Fest weekend, including ice fishing, curling, and sled hockey. We've also launched the golf course request for proposals process, which is a procedure that the city uses to maintain financial transparency. And a community charrette is scheduled for March 4th from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Brookings High School for designing of the skate park. Staff has also been able to attend several trainings over the last month for aquatics and forestry training. And Darren Hoff, who's in the Parks Department, or Recreation Division of the Parks and Recreation Department, is now a certified park and recreation professional. The library has partnered with the Brookings Disability Awareness Committee to offer an 8-week American Sign Language class starting in February, with registration maxed out at 15 participants, and we have a wait list of 30 more interested, so we're looking forward to offering that again in the future. And library staff were also able to host a table at Hygie Day, I think, at the South Dakota Art Museum, and were able to interact with more than 50 people during that event. And last but not least, the Dakota Bank Center is holding 18 event days in February. This month's highlights were the Tri-Company Dart Tournament with over 2,200 attendees, and staff also had the chance to attend a career fair at the high school to highlight opportunities for employment there. Several recent and ongoing building improvements include the arena floor polishing, microphone upgrades to the box office, and the launch of a request for proposals to upgrade the bathrooms. And I will take any questions.
Thank you, Samantha. Any questions, comments from council? Thank you. All right. Ends business for this evening. Our next meeting is March 11th, regular meeting at 6 o'clock. But before that, we have joint jurisdiction with the county and for the first reading that we had this evening. That starts at 5:30. Does any member of the council have any items to present for a future agenda? Okay, so we'll go down the list a little bit on the March 11th meeting. Open forum, consent agenda. There's one wine renewal. Report from the Student Association, ex officio reports, and then we will have a presentation on a process to fill Andrew Rasmussen's vacant seat for a year. No first readings as of yet or contracts, and we have the 3 public hearings or second readings that we had tonight. Okay, with that being said, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to, all those in favor say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.